After 1 decade of making manga, I finally have it. The list of things that you should absolutely not do when making your own manga. I receive DMs of people showing me their manga pages every single day. And I have analyzed some of them to find the top 5 worst mistakes that all of you guys are making. So, let's take a look. What's wrong with my manga pages? What can I improve? 5 things. There are 5 things that you are doing that are holding you back. Hi, by the way, my name's Marcel, my name's Marcel, and I've released 7 manga volumes by now. And of course, I get a lot of you guys asking, why does my manga not look like that? I've analyzed some of them, and they all had mostly 5 things that you could collectively improve on. Like a sir. So, number 1 would be this. I had this issue myself at the beginning with my first manga pages. Back then, my backgrounds felt more like 2D wallpapers and not like believable 3D environments. And obviously, at first, you think it's all about making sure the manga pages don't feel empty, which is also correct, but it's primarily about orientation. If a manga page is only filled with white backgrounds or stuffed with speed lines, you quickly lose track of which character is standing where. This is especially important with fight scenes. My biggest regret in earlier manga volumes was just filling everything monotonously with the same background because I was too lazy. I've shown this before in the video, but here's a fight scene from volume 2 of Myth, my manga series. This is the perfect example. This fight takes place in an alleyway. I did try to draw different bricks on different walls, but that didn't help very much. You could barely tell these backgrounds apart. And that means you quickly lose orientation when reading that fight. So it doesn't always help to just draw any kind of background. These backgrounds also need to be unique, so your reader doesn't lose orientation. In my new manga that I released last year, I always try to introduce unique landmarks. Like, for example, a staircase made of bones, so you can always tell and understand where something is taking place, what angle is being shown, and so on. What's also extremely helpful are 3D models. For this manga, I simply rebuilt some scenes in 3D so I could always keep my orientation while drawing the manga. Actually moving around in your scene is so helpful for this. I know for some people that's way too much work, but what I can recommend is just using a free software like Blender and doing some very basic blockouts for your scene. This is immensely helpful for planning fights and of course also backgrounds. By the way, if you're wondering which tablet I'm using right now, this is the new tablet from XP Pen. XP Pen is sponsoring this video and I got to try out their latest tablet for this video. This is the XP Pen Artist 27 Gen 2, by far the most insane and biggest tablet I've ever had in my hands. This tablet is so ridiculously big that you can easily replace multiple monitor setups with this because everything fits on this one screen. I've honestly never seen a drawing tablet like this before. It's also perfect for working with references, which hopefully all of you are doing anyway. I've never drawn on a 4K 120Hz display before. I feel like this looks sharper than actual real life. And this display has a touch screen as well. My cheap tablet doesn't have any of that, and I gotta say, working like this is something that I could really get used to. I wouldn't even want to give it back anymore. It even comes with multiple pens, so if you want to do dual wielding or draw in multiplayer, you can be the first artist using 2 pens on the same tablet. What I didn't like at first was that XP Pen tablets don't have any buttons on the side like my previous tablet, but they literally give you a full remote, so you don't need any keyboards or extra buttons anymore and can easily do things like transforming or switching tools, etc. with your left hand. This is also pretty nice when it comes to posture. What really stood out is that XP Pen puts a lot of emphasis on color accuracy, because XP Pen is very, very proud of this display. And as always, you guys as my viewer get this monster of a tablet a bit cheaper if you want to. You can actually get a $300 discount on this tablet. Yes, you heard that right, $300 $100 cheaper when using the code DrawlikeaSir15. I've linked this tablet down below. This code is only valid for a limited time, so be quick to check it out. Now, what I've also noticed from your manga pages is that most of you guys like to draw shonen battle manga, which, shocker, I know. So let me give you a tip as someone who has only made shonen battle manga so far. Don't focus too much on fights. Why? In short, this image. This is called survivorship bias. Those who know know. Let me explain it briefly. Everyone sees shonen battle manga and thinks, wow, this is so cool. It must be so successful because of its fights. But even if you really think about it, fights usually only make up about 1/3 of a shonen manga. The rest is dialogue, world building, lore, and so on. If you only think about fights, you can barely make 1/3 of your manga. You need to put the same creativity and effort into dialogue. Otherwise, these non-fighting pages become so boring, your readers will be gone faster than my dad when I was 5. If all of your dialogue pages are boring, you lose your readers before you even start the fight. Here's a boring sounding example from my manga, which basically boils down to he came into the tent, and then they talked, and then he left again. So that scene could look like this, but it could also look like that. You can see how much of a difference this makes. And so this leads us to number 3, which is I've talked a lot about page flow in my videos before. It's super important, but this does not mean that you should just draw the same perspectives and panels over and over and over again just because the page layout was genius the first time. When making manga, I set myself the rule, never use the same layout twice. It doesn't matter which page you're reading, I always used a different layout. I built every single page completely individually, whether it was for fight scenes or for dialogue scenes. You have to put the same amount of effort into both. Getting out of your comfort zone is scary, but if you play it safe all the time, you'll get repetitive really fast. And if you're now lost about all of these things like paneling, perspective, and world building, I do have a whole manga playlist that you could check out for that. There are tutorials on every topic. Okay, hear me out. I know this isn't about drawing, but while reading through some pages, there was one common thing about most of them when it came to the story. Because the stories felt really flat. By that, I mean that you can always tell the lore and the story wasn't flashed out. Writing your story and world should not work like a straight line, or at least it shouldn't feel like one. Stories usually have B-plots, aka other things that happen in your world, so your world feels more believable and alive. Especially if you have a manga with a lot of lore and world building, making it feel like things in your world have already happened is priceless. Without all of that, your story might seem way too simple to be interesting. Now, with some of you guys sending me multiple pages, there's sometimes the issue of your character looking completely different as the story goes on. This could have 2 different reasons. First of all, I've mentioned this in another video before, but when I design a new character, I write myself a kind of blueprint for them. Just writing down what makes this character stand out. For this one, for example, it's a super high hairline, very small eyes, a nose that's kind of arrow-shaped, and when I draw that character again, I can apply all of these features again. And I know, sometimes you design a character and you think they don't have any special features. What am I supposed to write into my blueprint? But when you draw that character again and again and again and again, you get used to drawing that design over time and you slowly notice traits that define them. As you can see, I also sometimes have to practice drawing a character before the design actually sticks. Even pros deal with this sometimes. You know, where the character on the concept sheet can look like maybe a distant cousin or a relative, instead of like the exact same character. And that's even though it's literally the same design. And by the way, if you have the problem that you can't redraw your character at all, or you can't draw them from other angles, then your problem is not character design, it's just simply drawing faces and proportions in general. So you need to make sure proportions on your character stay consistent and don't change, because that's what make their faces look different in the first place. And would you look at that, there's already a video about that on my channel. Make sure to check out XP Pen and their tablets, especially the new Artist Pro 27 Gen 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys next time.